Hi everybody. I want to welcome you to this podcast on Seth Godin's The Icarus Deception. As you can probably tell, we've got a little bit of technical difficulties here. So what you're going to get is, for the most part, is my disembodied voice, but you'll get Lee Brower on camera to talk about the book. The book itself, let me swing over here so we can get this going. The book itself is a couple years old, I guess, and I think it's one of the best works that Seth Godin has put out. It's a book that I think has changed my thinking about a lot of things, primarily the way economies work, the way markets work, the focus of entrepreneurs. It was quite influential for me, and I know that Lee has mentioned it in passing on numerous occasions whenever we've talked about ideas with respect to the way entrepreneurs think and the way they could be thinking going forward. So let me start off, Lee, and just ask you about the book itself. We usually start by talking about just overall impressions. What about you really impressed you with this particular book, The Icarus Deception?
Well, it's like most books, Ron. I think that once you start reading a book now, it immediately strikes you as being spot on with where you're at and your thinking and where you're going. And then automatically I start thinking about other relationships that I have and wanting to share it immediately. And so I think part of it's just a desire to share the book because as you start to read it, and then that tells you that there's something valuable in it. Typically, what I do is somebody will put me onto a book, and I will then put it on my Kindle and read it as fast as I can. And then by reading it as fast as I can, I get the gist of it, and know whether I want to move forward with it. Once I've done that, and I can tell, hey, I want to dig into this, then I get the hard copy and I get the Audible. And that way, the Audible, I can reinforce what I've learned wherever I'm at, if I'm working out or driving in the car. But the real work happens in the hard copy, where I go through and outline everything and write notes to myself. And then I take everything that I've underlined on the Kindle and I put it so that I have access to it as well. So I just hate it when I read a great book and somebody says, how was that book? And you say, oh, it's fantastic. But then you can't tell you why it was fantastic. So certain books that we've read, and I've enjoyed Ron being a part of this, because every book that I think that we've chosen to broadcast, we've both read and we've both come to an agreement that this is an extremely valuable. Before we actually share it in a podcast form, we apply it. We talk to different people. We look at places to apply it. We use it in our work, and we gain some sort of reinforcement from that. And I can tell you that where I think that Seth Godin is on this particular book, and it's been out for a couple of years now, is that he's way ahead of the curve in his thinking. He's hitting on some critical points that if we don't pay attention to them, we're going to be left behind. And everything is happening at exponential speed now. I look at it, you've heard the saying about, Ron, the thing where you take a piece of paper, just a plain piece of paper like this, and you fold it in half. And, then you say, okay, how thick is that? And you fold it in half. I think if you fold it 16 times, it equals an inch. And so basically, there's 4, but you do it 16 times, you've got an inch. But if you do it 50 times, how far have we gone? We've gone from here to the sun. Now that seems incomprehensible, but really, when you think about it, from here to the sun, the last fold was halfway from here to the sun. And I'm looking at, since the beginning of time, when you look at the exponential results of the technology and research, we're on some of the later folds. I'm sure we're not on the last fold, but we're on some of the later folds where we're getting so much done in a shorter period of time. Just look at the progress in 1 year. And if you don't pay attention to this book, if you don't take this book and start asking new questions, you are going to get left behind. That's my assessment of it. So
yeah, I would concur with that. One of the things, the first things that strike me is that when I tell people, well, the book's called The Icarus Deception, they look at me and they go, the what? So maybe you might want to take a second and explain the title and where that comes from.
Well, Icarus was the son of a man whose name, a Greek god, the name that starts with Dis or something like that. And They lived in a mythical era where the king of the land, they exiled him to an island, to a prison where they were imprisoned there. And so he came up, the father came up with this great idea to make these wings, and he made the wings out of wax. And he instructed his son before he took off and flew it. The instruction that's common in the myth is he said, don't fly too high to the sun. And the moral of the story is the hubris of Icarus, that, hey, look at me, I'm flying, I'm great, I'm fabulous, I'm wonderful, led him to fly up close to the sun. Of course, it melted the wings and he fell to the ground. What's missing in that story, or how over the years what's missing, is he also told him, don't fly too close to the ocean. And because then you're going to miss the winds or the lift that's going to be able to lift you up. And so he refers to this as the Icarus Deception, because many of us, we seem to think that, okay, just don't fly close to the sun. So we're always flying down here. And we think we're in our comfort zone. And we think our safety zone is our comfort zone. And what's happening, and his point being, is that unless you get up and fly, and you're going to fall, you're going to get too close to the ocean, and you're going to miss the lift, and you're not going to get lifted by everything. So the Icarus Deception has locked us into where we're confused about our comfort zone being our safety zone. And if we stay in our comfort zone, that we're going to miss huge opportunities and get left behind. So I think that's where the term, the Icarus Deception.
Yeah, yeah. And I know that Godin, is particularly critical of the industrial economy, and just I think that's where a lot of his thinking about flying too low comes from. Would you be willing to comment a little bit about that? Because I know we talk about it.
Well, I think, as I look around, the new questions I'm asking is, am I operating in the old industrial economy, or am I operating in the new connection economy? And as I'm consulting and working with businesses like yours and with individual families and their businesses, I'm asking them to ask the same question. Are you doing the same things, expecting hours, this many hours works, I should get this reward? And are you take this, then you do this, then you do this, and then you can sell your product, and sell your product for the cheapest price you can find. And then just continue to do that, and ultimately get into that internet fueled economy where you only have two choices, and one choice is really to just keep getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper as things get faster and better. And so we lose our edge in terms of competition. So the old industrial society, I look at the industries around us today. What industries are mired in the old industrial economy? I think our legal industry is, definitely. I think our accounting industry is. A lot of these service industries are. The banking industry, certainly the financial industry, is mired in the old economy of, this is the way we've always done it, this is the way we do it. You do A plus B plus C plus D equals this. Very linear, where we're going to have 10% growth this year, and that's phenomenal. 2 to 3% is acceptable. As long as we're growing, it's great. And when you start looking at the connection economy and the difference between the industrial and the connection economy, the connection economy asks, why are we doing this? And what is the artistry of what we're doing? And how can we, because we can connect with so many people and in so many different ways because of technology, and so much faster and better, and interestingly, we don't have to sell to everybody. We can really be out and find those people that fit our niche and make ourselves unique and fit their uniqueness. So it's kind of like the crazies finding the crazies and coming together. And I know that in our business, it's allowed us to really look at it and say, we know that what we do isn't the perfect thing for everybody. However, we understand the importance of it and its role that we think in creating value for this planet going forward. And we will find those like-minded thinkers that think along the way. But if we stayed in the industrial economy, we would be so far behind. There's no way we could catch up.
Yeah, I think that Godin, he's a marketer primarily. I mean, that's where a lot of his thinking comes from, and he's particularly harsh on kind of the old industrial age way of marketing. What does he call it, like yelling or interrupting?
Yeah,
interrupting everybody. It's with basically advertising and PR and television, where they just blast out one thing. And he juxtaposes that with our modern world, and I think certainly the internet is a big piece of that. Also, you alluded to technology, but I think that that's, a big part of his message. And he talks about a different economy as opposed to the industrial economy. And we talk about that quite a bit as well. And wondered if you would comment about Godin's characterization of the new economy and what he calls that and how that works.
Well, I think, a paragraph from his book, I'll just share it with you, that kind of touches on that a little bit. And that he says, it's okay for the person assembling a Domino's pizza or an Apple iPhone if they don't care. The system cares, and that people have developed systems. And so the system measures every movement, every bit of output. So all of the tolerances are in order. And it's okay if the person at the bank doesn't care. The real work is done by an ATM or a spreadsheet. And we've systematized and mechanized every step of every process. By eliminating personal from frontline labor, the industrial system ensures that it can both maintain quality and use ever cheaper and ever fewer workers. And so everybody's a genius. And if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life just thinking that it's stupid. That's an Albert Einstein quote. And so really, what he's talking about is that management is diametrically opposed to leadership. We've said this for a long time. And I think that when you get into the industrial society, everything is about management, about, you have to do this, to do this, to do this, to do this. And we've lost the capability of that person doing the Domino's pizza or the person that's assembling the iPhone. We've lost the ability of them to contribute to the creativity of that iPhone. They're not going to make any decisions. They're not going to tell you the iPhone should be better here this way. What they're doing is they're doing their job, and then they're on their way home. And what the connection economy does is it honors every person in the connection economy as being an artist, and really accepting that role as an artist, and that they're an artist in their particular specialty, what they do best. And to have that kind of thinking, to be thinking that if I'm assembling the Domino's pizza, to be thinking along with this, how can I assemble it better? How could I create this in such a way that we could reach more people with this pizza? To have that like thinking that's going on collectively at all levels really moves it into that connection economy, because we're not going to compete in the future. Systems and artificial intelligence and technology, robotics are going to continue to replace humans in the process, and they're going to be better at it. They're going to do a better job of it. And unless we can capture the vision of how to really connect with others, to ask questions that they haven't asked before, we're going to be left behind.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Lee. I think, he's particularly harsh on our education system. I have been through similar educational experiences where you just, I don't know what it's like in schools nowadays, but he's particularly harsh on it because he feels like, education is mired in that industrial economy. I wondered if you talk a little bit about that, about not only his criticism, but also the kinds of education that this connection economy might really require for us, or the kinds of thinking and skills that are really necessary for this connection economy.
Yeah, well, I still am involved because we have two daughters that are in college, and so I still have conversations with them. I'm very curious about the types of learning that they're doing, and yeah, we are mired in this industrial society, and so we're graded not on our understanding or our ability to understand, not on our creativity, but our ability to memorize. And if we memorize this, and this is what the professor wants us to memorize, then of course, then what are we learning how to do? Ron, you and I had an experience recently. Where we actually witnessed a videotape of an English teacher who was talking about the traditional way of teaching and some of the challenges that she had. And she actually gave an example of one of her students who was always been an A student, and she taught English. And all of a sudden, the A student was doing okay on her exams, but she wasn't turning in any homework. And she had a discussion with her where she said, that if you don't start turning in homework, I may have to fail you in this class. And the student said, I'm okay with that. She said, well wait, if I fail you in this class, it's altogether possible you may not make it into college. And she said, I'm okay with that too. And she said, how can you be okay with that? And she said, well, look, I love poetry, and I love to write poetry, and I can write a poem, and I can submit it to thousands of people online who are experts in poetry, who would give their opinion that they love it. They're lovers of poetry. They're experts of poetry. And within minutes, literally within hours, I've got hundreds of opinions, criticisms, and suggestions on how to enrich that poetry and make it better. Or I can write that same poem and give it to you. And maybe 3 days later, I get one person's opinion of it. Now that's to me is kind of a microcosm of what's really going on in our educational system. We're there to satisfy our ability to memorize. And we're there to satisfy our professors or our teachers' particular nuances or the things that they care about. And we're competing with other students on memorization, not our ability to learn, not our ability to solve, not our ability to contribute, but to be rote robots that are just basically processing things. And that won't work. That won't cut it in today's world. The world, by the time that my two daughters graduate from college, one wants to be a radiologist, the other one wants to work in international hospitality, and she understands Mandarin. The one that wants to be a radiologist, I'm concerned about, because radiology, by the time she graduates, it'll be changed by the next year or the next month, and then the month after that. The one that's in hospitality and is learning, and is competent in Mandarin, she's got a much better future if she asks the right questions and does things right. The challenge for this daughter in radiology is she's starting to ask new questions now. It's not about radiology. It's about getting information faster to more people in the right way that they can make correct decisions. So she's not really going to be a radiologist. She's going to move into her artistry, which is what she does best. But the ultimate outcome is going to be, how do we get reliable information to the right people at the right time in the right way so that they can make the right decisions faster, better, easier. That's the type of attitude that we need to have in our educational system that we just don't have
now. Maybe we'll finish up this portion of the podcast with maybe any other observations, remarks, material from this particular book, again, the Icarus Deception. It's one of many books that Seth Godin has published, but is there anything else that you found particularly noteworthy, particularly for our audience, that you'd like to share with them in this public portion of the podcast?
Yeah, I'd like to give, here's a quote that I think is extremely meaningful. It says, successful organizations have realized that they are no longer in the business of coining slogans, running catchy ads, and optimizing their supply chains to cut costs. And freelancers and soloists have discovered that doing a good job for a fair price is no longer sufficient to guarantee success. Good work is easier to find than ever before. And he says, what matters now is trust, permission, remarkability, leadership, and then stories that spread. Humanity, connection, compassion, and humility. And there's the thing. And all six of them are very important. But now let's focus for a second on stories that spread. These are assets that are generated by capturing our experiences in such a way that they become valuable to those that we name, brand, and share them with. And throughout the book, it just continued to bear home one of the key principles behind empowered wealth, one of the key concepts, and that is that our past is our greatest teacher. Now, my past will teach me, but if I learn from my past and I only keep that learning to myself, then what good is it dies with me when I die? In the connection economy, as we have different experiences, I can have one particular experience that, based upon my own experiences contextually, will teach me something. So stories, trust, let's review those things again. Trust, permission, remarkability, leadership, and stories that spread, plus humanity, are going to be the great six things that make a difference. I suggest that you take time to read this book. If you don't, it's your loss. It's one of those books that we so highly recommend that we are encouraging everybody that we come into contact, anybody that's running a business, anybody that's thinking about how they can make a difference in the world. And that's all of us. That's all of you and every one of you that's watching this right now.
Okay. Well, here's the body back again. We'll sign off for this portion of the public podcast on the Icarus Deception. For those of you who are members of Empowered Wealth Connect, we're going to continue on with this dialogue on Seth Godin's book, The Icarus Deception, and probably add a little bit more about his thinking and philosophy, generally speaking. I know we've got a copy of his new book here, and maybe it'll be a good opportunity for us to talk a little bit about and go into a little more detail about stories of spread, artistry, and a number of different Seth Godin ideas. So again, thank you very much for tuning into this particular podcast on the Icarus Deception, and we'll look forward to having you on one of our next book reviews in the very, very near future.
Thank you.